we go to the third chapter, The Midnight Visitor by Robert Arthur. A little mysterious, a little full of wit. So let's see, get the catch of it and enjoy it. Let's know about the author before we move on. Robert Arthur Jr. was an American writer of mystery and speculative fiction. That's interesting, yeah? His fame rests on the Mysterious Traveler radio series and his Three Investigators series of novels. His stories were published in many magazines between 1930 and 1940. So one decade he had a lot of stories were published. He also wrote mystery books for children. He was twice honored by the Mystery Writers of America with his writing partner Edgar. So yes, the mysterious man with a mysterious story. Let's go and watch, and before that let's move on to the plot. The Midnight Visitor is a very thrilling account of a secret agent, Ausible's one particular episode. So the secret agent Ausible, now this is just one episode out of it. Whole lot of series. Ausible didn't fit any description of a secret agent. Now, if you talk of a secret agent, you know how they are, those tall and those, witty, and, they look also different. They have a different look altogether. But he did not fit into any such category if you talk of the description. He didn't live up to the romantic picture of a secret agent that we read in books or see in films. Now, generally, what is the impression we have, when we've read about secret agents? He was none of the types. He was totally different. He was rather fat and sloppy. He was a round man. He lived in a very small room on the 6th floor. Now, if it is mentioned on the 6th floor, you need to keep it in mind. You see, this is it's a thrilling account, it's mysterious. So you need to really think of every word. Be careful about every word that I'm talking about. Moving further. However, Ausible was gifted with a rare presence of mind. Not everyone has that. When we get into difficult situations, we lose it all. Our presence of mind is lost. We are not there. We get so panicky. We hit the panic mode and we forget everything. But for him, this was an exceptional character he had. He was gifted with a rare presence of mind. He was quick of action. His fertile brain could invent and cook up stories and situations that would confuse and unnerve his rivals. Now, this is the main thing which any secret agent should have, and he had it. He was gifted with that. He had that presence of mind and his, so very well described, fertile brain. His brain was working so well. He could invent and cook up stories and situations. The rivals, his opposite, all his rivals would totally, get into that and forget everything. They would literally get into it and lose it all. He cooked up the story of the balcony below the window of his room and the arrival of the police. I will not stretch on this. We will talk about it in the entire story. He outwitted and outsmarted his rival and enemy secret agent Max, who had come to take away a very important paper concerning some new missiles. Through his presence of mind, Ausible was able to get rid of his rival, Max. So Max was another secret agent and they both were rivals. Now, what do they come across? How it all happens? Let's see. So you have the characters here. Which are the different characters? You have Ausible. He is a different kind of secret agent. Ausible doesn't present such a romantic picture. He is not that type. He is very fat and sloppy. Physically, he may be fat, but mentally, he is very agile and quick-witted, extremely clever. He knows all the tricks of his trade. Trade as in he was a secret agent. So he knew how to play his tricks, how to play his cards very well. He is very quick to react and can cook up stories that may fit in all kinds of situations. He would cook up stories as per the situation that came in front of him. If we talk of Max, who is his rival, his enemy? Max is a secret agent and a rival and enemy of Osable. He is slender, a little less than tall. He's not that hefty, of course, unlike Osable. He appears crafty and has a countenance of a fox. His brain works like that of a fox. There is nothing especially menacing about him except his pistol. There's nothing really great that you can talk about him except the pistol that he had carried. He enters Osable's room to take away a very important paper concerning some new missiles. If I talk of Fowler, Fowler is a young and romantic writer. He wants to write a book on detectives. Fowler forms a very romantic and grand picture of a secret agent in his mind. Now, because he was a writer, he had a different scenario. He had a different picture set up in his mind of a secret agent. He finds Osable not cracking pistols or surrounded by dark-eyed beauties like James Bond. Now, when it comes to secret agent, the first thing we can think is of James Bond. So, Fowler has that image in his mind, but he could not see anything of the sort in case when it came to Osable as compared to James Bond. He feels let down after meeting Osable. He does not like it. He's like, where am I? What am I doing? So he had come to spend time with him, Fowler, the writer, and to see, because he wanted to write on detectives. So he really wanted to feel how they do, what they do. He wanted to see it himself. So he went to spend some time with Osable, but he was not happy. He was bored. So let's see at length. Osable did not fit any description of a secret agent Fowler had ever read. Following him down the musty corridor of the gloomy French hotel, musty corridor as in having a stale, moldy or a damp smell. That corridor was not really clean. It was musty. It was the gloomy French hotel. It was the corridor of the gloomy French hotel where Osable had a room. Fowler felt let down. He's like, where have I come? The place is so icky. It was a small room on the 6th floor and top floor, and scarcely a setting for a romantic adventure. Romantic, we know, imaginative or having a fantastic view of reality. He said there was nothing that I could see around, nothing as I could come and tell you, oh, I visited a secret agent and this, but there was nothing over there, as how Fowler had read and he had that image in his mind. Osable was, for one thing, fat, very fat. And then there was his accent. His accent was not, see now, though he spoke French and German, possibly as in well enough, tolerably well, like not that great, not that fluent, but yeah, it was well enough. He had never altogether lost the American accent he had brought to Paris from Boston 20 years ago. So it is telling you all about Osable. He had come here 20 years ago. He had come from Boston. He is in Paris since 20 years. Never lost his American accent, though he talks a little bit of French and German. Good enough, not that fluent. You are disappointed, Osable said wheezily over his shoulder. Wheezily as in breathing noisily and heavily. Noisily and heavily over his shoulder. You were told that I was a secret agent, a spy dealing in espionage as in spying, and danger. You wished to meet me because you are a writer, young and romantic. You envisioned mysterious figures in the night, the crack of pistols and drugs in the wine. That's what you imagined, right? That's how you had envisioned. You had that scenario in mind that when you go to see a secret agent, you are going to see all this. You're going to see mysterious figures in the night. You're going to hear the crack of pistols and you're going to have drugs in the wine. So that is how, the sort of the image is there of a secret agent. Instead, you have spent a dull evening in a French music hall with a sloppy fat man, sloppy as in carelessly dressed, not even well dressed, fat man instead of having messages slipped into his hand by dark-eyed beauties, gets only a prosaic telephone call making an appointment in his room. Prosaic as an ordinary telephone call. Now here Ausable is telling, this romantic writer all this. He says, I'm sorry, but that's how you had actually imagined it. You were told, but what you are seeing is absolutely nothing as to what you had imagined. So he says, in fact, you are where? You are there, spending this dull evening. This is a French music hall with a fat man like me who is not even well dressed. And instead of having messages slipped into the hand by dark-eyed beauties, no one around, not a single girl around, no beauty around. In fact, all that I'm getting is an ordinary telephone call making an appointment in his room. That's that. You have been bored. The fat man chuckled to himself. Here he means laughed quietly without opening his mouth. You just laugh within. You laugh to yourself as he unlocked the door of his room and stood aside to let his frustrated guest enter. Now both of them were heading to his room, right? Fowler and the guy himself, the secret agent, and this is the conversation they had till they entered the room. So yes, he let him enter first and he says, you are disillusioned, Ausable told him, as in disappointed in someone or something that one discovers to be less good than one had believed. Now you had believed something else, you had thought of something else and you did not get it as expected. So you are disillusioned, Ausable told him. But take cheer, my young friend, to give a shout or approval or encouragement for someone. He says, don't worry, relax, just be calm. Presently you will see a paper, a quite important paper for which several men and women have risked their lives. Come to me. A very important paper I am expecting. That paper for which many people have risked their lives. So just wait, keep some patience. Someday soon that paper may well affect the course of history. He says that paper is so important that maybe in a few days that paper will affect the history, the whole course of history. In that thought is drama, is there not? He says now that when you are, thinking of this, what I just told you, there is enough drama, isn't it? As he spoke, Ausable closed the door behind him. Then he switched on the light. And as the light came on, Fowler had his first authentic thrill of the day. As soon as they entered, Ausable switches on the light and Fowler experiences thrill, the very first authentic thrill. And what was that? For halfway across the room, a small automatic pistol in his hand, stood a man. So as soon as they switched on the light, they saw a man over there with a pistol in his hand. Ausable blinked a few times. Max, he wheezed. You gave me quite a start. He says, oh, that's you. I thought you were in Berlin. What are you doing here in my room? He says, you were supposed to be in Berlin at this point of time. What are you doing here in my room? Now remember, Max is Ausable's enemy, right? His rival. Max was slender. He was thin, sort of gracefully thin, a little less than tall, not very tall, with features that suggested slightly the crafty, pointed countenance of a fox. Countenance as in a person's face or facial expression, somewhere like a fox. That was about him. Aside from the gun, nothing especially menacing. There was nothing really threatening about this person. He did not look that, the typical secret agent as well. He was pretty thin and all that gun was in his hand that was threatening. Apart from that, his appearance was definitely not threatening. The report, he murmured. The report that is being brought to you tonight concerning some new missiles. They speak to the point. They don't say, hi, how are you? So they spoke to the point. They says, look, I am here for the report. That report which is being brought to you tonight concerning some new missiles, the weapons directed by remote control or automatically. We all know what are missiles. I thought I would take it from you. It will be safer in my hands than in yours. He says those reports should be in my hand and not in yours. They will be way safer. Ausable moved to an armchair and sat down heavily. I'm going to raise the devil with the management this time, and you can bet on it, he said grimly. Now just watch every word that he talks, okay? Please be very attentive. Raise the devil as in I am going to make a noisy disturbance to the management of the hotel this time, and you can bet on it, and I'm seriously going to do it. This is the second time in a month that somebody has got into my room through that nuisance of a balcony. He says this is the second time somebody has entered my room from the balcony. Fowler's eyes went to the single window of the room. Fowler was confused. He says, that's a window. I don't see any balcony beyond. It was an ordinary window against which now the night was pressing blackly. He could only see darkness there. There was no balcony ahead. Balcony? Max said with a rising inflection, with a rising modulation of intonation or a pitch in the voice to emphasize the words. He says, balcony? That's how he said it. No, a pass key. I did not know about the balcony. He says, no, I have not come from any balcony. I had a pass key and I came in with that. It might have saved me some trouble had I known. He says, oh, I wish there was a balcony. It would have saved me trouble. I wouldn't have gone through all that nuisance. I would have directly come from there, but I did not know that a balcony existed. It's not my balcony, Ausable said with extreme irritation. It belongs to the next apartment. He says that balcony is not mine. It belongs to the next apartment. He glanced explanatory at Fowler. Now, he's looking at Fowler and he's trying to explain it to him. You see, he said, this room used to be part of a large unit and the next room through that door there used to be the living room. It had the balcony which extends under my window now. He said it had a balcony, but the balcony is under my window currently. You can get onto it from the empty room 2 doors down. He says you can get there, but you have to go 2 doors down. And somebody did last month. He said even last month somebody did that and had entered my room. The management promised to block it off, but they haven't. He's very upset. He said, I had complained to the management of the hotel. You all better block that way, but they haven't. This guy has come again. Max glanced at Fowler. Now Max is glancing at Fowler, who was standing stiffly not far from Ausable and waved the gun with a commanding gesture. He showed the gun to him and with a very commanding gesture, he told him, please sit down. He said, we have a wait of half an hour, I think. He says, I think we will have to wait for half an hour, so you better sit down. 31 minutes, Ausable said moodily. He says, it's not even 30 minutes, it's 31 minutes. The appointment was for 12:30. I wish I knew how you learned about the report, Max. He says, I wish I knew. How did you come to know about the reports? The little spy smiled evilly. He gave a very, spious smile, should I say, a very evil smile. And we wish we knew how your people got the report. But no harm has been done. I will get it back tonight. What is that? Who is at the door? Fowler jumped at the sudden knocking of the door. Now, while these people were, exchanging talks and trying to analyze who got the report and how they got the report, suddenly there was a loud knocking at the door. There was a sudden knocking at the door. And who is at the door? Fowler just jumped. He's like, oh my God, now who's here? Ausable just smiled. He did not react. That will be the police, he said. I thought that such an important paper as the one we are waiting for should have a little extra protection. Now, the paper that I'm expecting needs a little more protection because they are way, way valuable. I told them to check on me to make sure everything was all right. He says, I had told the police to keep checking on me to make sure that everything is fine around here because those reports are expected and anything was possible. So I had asked them, for that little extra care, that little extra protection, I told them to take care. Max bit his lip nervously. Now, Max was nervous because the police was there. He had the gun in his hand. And obviously, if the police entered, Osable would just speak and he would be caught. The knocking was repeated. Once again, there was a knock on the door. What will you do now, Max? Osable asked. He says, now, what will you do? If I do not answer the door, they will enter anyway. The door is unlocked and they will not hesitate to shoot. He says, look, now the situation is such that that door is unlocked. So if I don't answer them, they will anyways come in. And of course, they will not hesitate to shoot. They will shoot at once. Max's face was black with anger as he backed swiftly towards the window. He quickly went towards the window. He swung a leg over the sill. He went to the other side of the window. Send them away, he warned. I will wait on the balcony. He says, I am waiting in the balcony. Quickly send them away. Send them away or I'll shoot and take my chances. He says, I will shoot or else. The knocking at the door became louder and a voice was raised. Mr. Osable, Mr. Osable, keeping his body twisted so that his gun still covered the fat man and his guest. The man at the window grasped the frame with his free hand to support himself. Now, his legs were outside the window, but he was twisted. So, this is the window. His legs are this side and he's like this. So, he has twisted and the gun is still pointed towards both of them. Then he swung his other leg up and over the windowsill. The door knob turned. Somebody opened the door. The door was about to open. Swiftly, Max pushed with his left hand to free himself from the sill. He pushed with his left hand to free himself from the sill and dropped to the balcony. Now he knew, as per Osable, that there is a balcony just down. You remember? So and it was night outside, he could not see. So he just turned over the window and he wanted to be in the balcony so that when the police goes, he would come up again. And then as he dropped, he screamed once shrilly. Shrilly as in piercingly in a high pitch. The door opened. Now, you can imagine what happened here. You can actually imagine. Was there a balcony? Well, that's Mr. Osable's alert mode, presence of mind. The door opened and a waiter stood there with a tray, a bottle and 2 glasses. Here is the drink you ordered for when you returned, he said, and set the tray on the table, deftly uncorked the bottle and left the room. Deftly as in very neatly, skillfully. The waiter came and said, sir, you had ordered this wine when you returned. So I have brought this here. He left the tray on the table. Very skillfully, he uncorked the bottle and then he left the room. Now, do you realize what is going on in Fowler's mind? White-faced Fowler stared after him. He's like, what is happening here? But he stammered, the police? There were no police, Osable sighed. Only Henry, whom I was expecting. Henry, the waiter. He said, I was just expecting him. There is no police. But won't that man out on the balcony? Fowler began. He says, then that man on the balcony? No, said Osable. He won't return. You see, my young friend, there is no balcony. He was, he took him for a ride. Actually, his presence of mind made up the whole thing within a fraction of a second maybe. The moment he saw Max, immediately he started talking to Fowler about the balcony. Then when the waiter was expected, he said it's the police. So well he framed it that, this guy had to believe. He actually believed, Max believed him, and he was gone. Remember, I told you right in the beginning of the chapter, on which floor was Oswald residing, staying? 6th floor. So when he jumped from the 6th floor, do you think that man must have survived? Oswald was very smart, very, very smart. That man was no longer there. His rival, his enemy, Max. So, doubt is a question mark. Faith is an exclamation point. The most compelling, believable, realistic stories have included them both. Very well put in by Chris Jammy. So beautifully said. He says there's doubt, which comes in a question mark. There is faith, which comes in an exclamation point. So if you actually want to read some good, believable, realistic stories, they have them both. Wow, really entertaining, thrilling, and of course, sort of mysterious. It was great fun to go through it. I hope you enjoyed the same. Yes? So, for some more interesting stories, keep watching and keep learning.